So I'm a big believer if the government money is our money
Yep.
at the end of the day,
Yep.
building schools for Australian kids.
Yep.
We should be using Australian products and circulating that money back through the economy so we can keep building better buildings and keep more people employed. And it's a whole flow-on effect. So I think manufacturing is a major part that's been missed in the Australian construction sector that we need to definitely bring back home.
What is up, everyone? This is Ronnie, your host of the Ronnie Asani Show. My number one goal in this show is to bring you some of the most amazing and accomplished individuals in the business world to share with you some real, raw, and authentic business insights. We sit down and talk in a casual setting, nothing too serious, yet we unpack some of the most incredible ideas, concepts, and best practices. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh, and don't forget to share the love. Like, share, and subscribe. Gracias, amigos. What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ronnie Asani Show. Joining me today is Leigh Rust, co-founder, director of Safetyline Jalousie. Is that how you say it? Louvre Windows, which is a family-owned, Australian-owned manufacturing business supplying the construction sector, and you guys focus on windows.
Correct.
Obviously, with a specific focus of, or maybe you can call it a mission of providing air quality solutions with ongoing energy efficiency for the buildings that you provide the products to. A bit about Leigh, you're a passionate advocate for Australian made goods, which is something I've actually been thinking about as of recent, and I'd love to talk more about that later on with you. Multi-award winning entrepreneur, father of 3, and MMA fan / you trained?
Yeah, training
as well. And last but not least, 2 decades of experience in manufacturing. Is that right?
Correct.
Awesome. Welcome to the Ronnie Asani Show, mate.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great.
I want to start right off the bat with talking a little bit about manufacturing. Obviously, this is, your neck of the woods, and you have a lot of experience in it. I don't know if you know, but I've gotten my bachelor's in industrial engineering back in the day.
Okay.
So I understand a little bit of manufacturing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if everyone who's listening or tuning in is as well, but like maybe we could talk about it from a high level perspective. Like manufacturing in Australia is not as big of a sector when you compare it to other sectors, right? And manufacturing in general in many other countries have kind of, over the years with the rise of, how trade has become easier, you can import and you don't have to. And even in countries like the States and Europe and many other countries, they started to rely more and more and more on importing rather than manufacturing, because one, it made economical sense. You can get cheaper products. And also it was easier to do than back in the day. What I've realized, especially over the last year with COVID and, the pandemic, and thinking about the future combined with things like automation and artificial intelligence and being able to have, like, for example, in the automotive industry, I've seen how Tesla, I'm not sure if you have, but I've seen how Tesla, streamlines the entire manufacturing process. I'm like thinking, okay, well, with more and more advances in the technology, you can essentially start bringing back manufacturing home. And so when I was looking into your bio, I was like, this is something that you're an advocate for, and I'm kind of curious what your take is on it and why in the first place it was like something that you're passionate about, and how do you see it planning out in the next few years in Australia?
Yeah, some really good points. So, first of all, I think pandemic has highlighted a lot of things regarding manufacturing overseas with delays and all these kind of things. So that in itself is enough to bring manufacturing home.
Yeah.
I think the demand for quality products now is a lot higher. And that sort of cheap import product is not so much sought after like it used to be. People want quality. Everyone has access to the internet, so it's very easy to research what's good and what's not. And manufacturing in Australia means we can control what goes out. We're seeing the goods before they're shipped. So I think that's a major push for us, especially in the construction sector. The codes are changing, buildings are getting built better and bigger. So there needs to be a high quality product here, and like ours, windows, there is lots of windows overseas that come in imported that are defective or non-compliant. So compliance is a major issue, and us manufacturing here means that we are in line with all the codes, and we can keep the standards really high. So
you're right. I think importing doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a lower quality. It depends on who and where and how and all that stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of imported products that are premium and great and all that stuff, but being able to do things in-house always gives you that level of control.
Correct.
That you were talking about, especially with stricter regulations. The overseas manufacturer might not even want to abide by them because they are trying to streamline the process to make it worthwhile, because they're not only producing or exporting to us, they're looking after many other markets. So if we have to do it this way, and then, this other country or this other, importer might not necessarily need that, why would we do it? But if you do it at home, it's a lot more control.
Yeah, and it's also about keeping the money onshore. We're building buildings in Australia for Australian people.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the money for manufacturing is getting sent offshore. So the circular economy is taken away. So
absolutely.
A lot of the jobs we do, we work for a lot of government schools. So I'm a big believer if the government money is our money at the end of the day. Building schools for Australian kids. We should be using Australian products and circulating that money back through the economy so we can keep building better buildings and keep more people employed. And it's a whole flow-on effect. So I think manufacturing is a major part that's been missed in the Australian construction sector that we need to definitely bring back home.
100% with you. Even if you look at like other manufacturing verticals, like I was talking about a little bit earlier about automotive, it kind of died out here, right? We used to assemble and, make some cars, and that kind of also died out. I think there's a lot that can be done in manufacturing in general in Australia, and I'm glad to see that you guys are focusing on that. So why don't we go a little bit into what you guys do and the story, how it all started, and go from there.
Okay, so I guess if we start from the story. So my story starts a while back. I'll give you the quick version.
Oh man, we got all the time. So you want to go in the long version? Go.
So basically, I left school as a kid. My father owns quite a successful manufacturing company, Virgola. And I left school and just figured that I would work for Dad, work up the ranks, take over the business, and happy days. But that wasn't the case to be. I left school and Dad said, "No, you can't work for me. Go get a job." So I said, "I'll get a job with you." He said, "No, go get a trade." So I went off and became a apprentice mechanic. Did that for 4 years and realised that was definitely not my path.
Not my cup of tea.
Not my cup of tea. Anyway, went back to work for Dad. I got a job in the factory floor, gave me sweep floors, worked my way through the business to sort of a senior management level, and realised pretty quickly at that level that this was my dad's business. It was never going to be my business, and that whole sort of fulfilment piece inside me was not there. I didn't want to just work under Dad or under Dad's, what he had built. So me and my brother sort of just started looking around, what can we do? And I guess manufacturing was a natural progression for us being in the family already. And we went to France and found this niche product, which we felt fitted a market here that wasn't yet tapped into. And me and him came back and started in a 2-car garage with just one lady in the office, and we've taken it from there. So
love it, man. So you really started from like scratch. You had a lot of experience, but starting that business was like, you didn't inherit anything. You didn't did you raise funds? I
guess. We did. We raised funds through my father, obviously. He was our biggest support.
But you could have raised it through someone else had that not been an option.
Correct.
I want to go back to you realizing that your dad's business was never going to be your business, is going to be like Dad's business. Was that a realization from the fact that you wanted to have the satisfaction of creating your own baby, or was it a mix of things? Like you also felt that, because some people say new school, old school, you know, and some people prefer not to kind of like go into that territory and just create their own thing, because they have the freedom, the flexibility of going about anything they want when it comes to steering the ship.
I think it was a couple of things. I think the first thing was it very much felt like my dad's business, and there was a roof over my head, as in I couldn't go any further, and I just wasn't fulfilled. And I had this, just like this inner drive. I wanted to create something that was mine, that I could look back in 10 years and say, I did that. That's mine, you know, on my own 2 feet. And I think that was probably one of the biggest drives. I just wasn't settled being, you know, working for dad.
And that's how you know if you're a true entrepreneur or not. If you're not satisfied and settled with just inheriting something. Because entrepreneurship is all about creating something. Is it, you know, and it's about making money, of course, but but it's about creating something. You know, that's what, in my view, the essence of entrepreneurship, that you are bringing something to life that never existed before through blood, sweat, and tears. And you had that in you. You know, you had the easy way, which is, okay, dad's business established. There's a path, although he made you work for it, which is the right thing, rather than say, hey, you know, here, you're the managing director. You don't have any experience in the business, right? But it was still like an easy path for you, but you chose to, you and your brother, to do something together from scratch, which is pretty cool. So how long has that been going?
So we're in our 11th year this year.
11th. God damn, man.
I know. I mean, it's funny. It feels like yesterday.
It does?
Yeah, it does. In some ways, yeah.
Do you still remember how it all started? Like the first year, how, like, you know, I'm guessing there was like, every business goes through some struggles. Like, do you reflect back on like the journey, especially the first couple of years?
It's funny. Just 3 weeks ago, I've just moved facilities again. So we've moved into a 2,500 square metre facility in Mona Vale, and we started in a 100 square metre double garage. And at the start, I was putting ads in papers, driving around, knocking on mums and dads' doors, trying to sell a window. And now, you know, we've progressed to like government contracts and standard items in most educational facilities. And it's funny, just the other day, I said to my brother, have a look at this. Like, look how far we have come. So
that is amazing.
Yeah.
The first 5 years are always really tough, especially the first, I don't know, 2 or 3, but the first 5 are in general. Like, if you make it through the first 5 years, your longevity as a business is like quite, the chances of it surviving is quite high. And the fact that you, in a partnership, like you've been together, like you and your brother from day one have been working together on the business for 11 years now.
Correct.
That is also amazing, because partnerships are not that easy. Like, sometimes you have, even if you're brothers, like you have different ways of wanting to go about things. How do you manage, I guess, a partnership where sometimes you don't, like I said, you don't have the same view? Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, well, it's trying and testing, I guess, to say the least. But being family, you know, you have each other's back, and we always have each best interests, you know, at heart. Even if we might not agree, we still know that the end goal is the same. But I think what we've learned over the years, it's about having, even though we both own the business, we both have a role in the business.
Right.
If his role is operations, that's his box he sits in. If my role is general manager, that's the box I sit in. So it's having really clear and defined roles and respecting each other's roles as being employees in the business. Even though we own the business, but it's staying in those lanes.
Absolutely.
And having that sort of respect. And I guess I'm lucky because me and my brother have been best friends forever. Yeah. Not only my best friend, my brother, and my business partner. So
that's awesome, man.
It is cool. Yeah.
And the fact that you run it like a proper business where you respect, like you said, roles and responsibilities, that I think that is pretty much the answer. Because you can have each other's back. You can, you know, love each other. You could be family. But if you don't have that understanding of, okay, what do you look after as an employee in the business, and what do I look after? So do you focus more on the sales and marketing, like the front end?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I look after office, admin, sales and marketing, and my brother oversees all operations. Yeah.
Okay. And so you started by putting a couple ads on like in newspapers and stuff.
I did.
That's funny. I mean, not funny. That's interesting. But now that you look at it, like advertising has obviously changed dramatically.
Correct, yeah.
Right?
I still remember the first window I sold at Castle Crag to I sold it. My brother said, "What are we doing?" I said, "I don't know. You got to go put a window in." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah."
I put the ad. I got the business. You
fixed it. And that's sort of how the role started back then. It was like I did the front end, he did the back end, and we've just continued like that. So it's been good.
And obviously that changed over time. But I'm assuming you were like, okay, the ad on the newspaper worked. Let's keep advertising there, right?
Sort of. The first few years were rough. It was, I guess, we tried to copy models that we were used to because my father's business is very much residential focused, like mums and dads type sales. So naturally, I copied that because that's what I felt worked. But after about a year of that, we realised the product didn't fit that market. So we had to adapt, and we shifted into trying to go to window fabricators and getting the product sort of in their showroom, so letting them be agents for us.
Right.
Again, realised that didn't work. So then we started going to architects and realised, okay, this can work for us. If we get specified in on jobs, then we're more likely to get more windows per job. So then the model evolved.
So yeah, that's very interesting. So you realised that in order for you to win the deals, you have to enter the process a lot earlier.
Correct, yeah.
By being looped in with the architect.
Yes.
And that's something you would have never known if you haven't tried to really got yourself in the trenches.
Yeah.
Like that's trial and error, but that's also thinking like, okay, what do I need to do here? And like understanding how the entire process works and also the sales process. If we're talking B2C, if you're an online fashion store, your process is like someone finds you on a I don't know, Facebook ad or anywhere, and then going to the page. I'm making it sound simpler than it is. It's a lot more complicated now, but it's still someone hears about you, probably online, goes to your site, makes a purchase. You're in the B2B space. So your customers could be government, could be I don't know, different commercial entities. And so that process is very, very different.
It can be up to a 2-year process sometimes, from design stage to the job actually going to site. So our life cycle of our sales cycle is, 2+ years. So when you're in the startup phase of a business, and you're getting a contract, but it's not 2 years away.
Until you get paid.
And you're like, I've got no money now. I need money now. What do we need to do to get the money to keep the business going until we get the big contract in 2 years? It's a scary process.
Yeah, and to make it even more complex, because you're the manufacturer. So you have a lot of cost embedded into making the product. You're not just importing and offloading that to someone. So you have to worry about, okay, what's my sales forecast? But do I have enough cash to put in to service that big project?
Correct. Yeah, we always have to be like 6 months in advance with stock, and all the overheads are big. So running a manufacturing company is definitely not easy.
Yeah,
you can't just get the order and then get the goods. We have to keep the goods ready so we can be fast to supply.
And how does the forecasting work? Like, do you pay too much attention? Do you put a lot of emphasis on trying to know what the next fiscal year is in terms of revenue and sales?
Yeah, we do. So obviously we've evolved a lot over 11 years, and there's a lot of systems out there which track projects. They track the stages of projects, and if we know we're specified on a project, there's usually a completion date. So then we can track where that should land in the life cycle for our orders, and we just manage it that way.
But when you get specified, does that mean you've won the order, or it's like 80-90%?
It depends on the way that jobs get contracted. So
Yeah.
in the construction industry, there's two sort of methods. One is architect specified, and the second is design and construct, where the builder takes the reins. And that can be a tricky process because they're always looking to, I guess, get the best value for their client.
Yeah.
And that can mean sometimes cutting out, high value products. So it's not as easy as getting specified and sitting back and waiting for the order. It's a process. You have to follow it through. You have to make sure everyone's aware, and you have to drive it till the end.
Yep. So I want to touch a little bit about selling, since you're the guy who looks after the sales part as well. And selling in B2B is completely different, and also depending on what the sector is. What were there any lessons learned along the way when it comes to, and I know you just mentioned of, that tactic or understanding that, hey, you need to be you need to be specified in with the architects and enter the process at a lot earlier stage. But from a selling standpoint, because like you said, the process is long and there's a lot of touch points along the way. Were there any specific lessons that you have kind of encountered?
Yeah, probably the major one is, at the end of the day, the architect is employed by someone, be it a developer or government. So I guess my biggest lesson is follow the money trail.
Right.
Follow it back to government. Government needs to be aware of us. They need to know why they should be using us, not just the architect. The architect sees all the benefits. They know what products are good. But does the end user know? So I think that's been our biggest lesson, is making sure the very end user, who has nothing to do really with product selection, is still aware, so that down the track, if we do go to get swapped out for another inferior product, the developer knows, actually, no, I want to keep that product because it does X, Y, Z.
Very interesting. Cool. So in terms of product positioning, and I know you mentioned that you guys went to France, you found this interesting product, and you're like, okay, this is a niche, we can bring it back to Australia, we can manufacture that product and whatnot. But like any other market or any other type of business, there's competition, right? And maybe we can tie that to the, I guess, importing from overseas, but also local competitors. How did you guys deal with the competition and successfully position yourself? And were you always looking into, okay, what else can we add to maybe a portfolio, or how do we improve the product or the perception of it or the quality? Like, what were the main things that you were focusing on when it comes to like the product and the product positioning?
I guess we saw a real niche in the market. There was a lot of louvers in the market which were very fit for residential projects.
Yep.
There wasn't anything that really fit in the commercial space. So we went really down a path of performance. So getting everything tested, everything standardized, so that there was no arguments. You can't argue with maths. So our wind, our water, our air infiltration, our acoustic ratings, all these metrics that are needed for commercial buildings, we went and tested everything for that and made sure that our testing was of the highest standard and that we outperformed anyone. So no matter what happened in the market, you didn't have to like us, but you had to respect us, because numbers don't lie. Yep. So that's how we positioned ourselves, as a real performance metric against everyone else, so that this wasn't a marketing argument. It was we're
not playing marketing gimmicks here. The numbers speak louder than anything else.
Correct. And the product really did fit that mold, and it still does. It's still one of the highest performing louvers in the world.
Yep. That's an interesting angle. So you're not trying to compete on, necessarily aesthetics or like they say, beat around the bush. You're like, okay, we're going to compete on things that you cannot deny.
Correct, yeah. And it's really worked well, because as I said earlier, buildings are getting built smarter, bigger, better, more energy efficient. So all these metrics are now so crucial, and the codes have changed in Australia.
Yep.
So everyone is aware of these codes, and everyone has to adhere to them. And so we're in a really good position now to put to the forefront what we've done for so many years, and make people
have that pay off.
Yeah.
I can't remember when, but it was recent. I read an article. It was talking about some residential buildings. You guys are just commercial?
Generally, yeah, we fit in the education space and commercial sector.
Okay. Some residential buildings, the developers are, the buildings are like from the future. Like you're talking about electric car stations in the parking. So if you got a Tesla, you can just, charge it in there. Latest like crazy technologies that are in there. So renewable, green, environmentally friendly, and you guys fit right into that. And that's like what's happening in the next 5 years.
That's correct. Yeah, the whole trajectory we're on at the moment is being Green Star, sustainable. That's where the market's going, so we need to keep up to survive. And we're looking at different ways we're sourcing different types of aluminium now, where aluminium is called a product called Reduxer, where it uses a third of the energy to produce compared to a normal aluminium. Right. So that gets a big green tick. We're looking at smart air systems, which we have in the market already, which monitors humidity, CO2, it monitors your air conditioning. So what we're trying to do is get as much natural ventilation into that building to stop the use of mechanical air conditioning, because if you're using those things, it's costing you money and it's costing energy, which is costing CO2 emissions, which is the opposite of Green Star. So that's our big push and our approach, and we feel that we're right in the market.
Right. So you're saying the window systems that you're working on or already have allows maximum ventilation?
Correct.
So that it minimizes the requirement for, or the need for you to have more, I guess, artificial air circulation within the building.
Correct.
Okay, and that's obviously done in a way where you're letting air come in. So ventilation as in air coming in and out, right? So it's like full circle.
Yeah, so if you've got a 23-degree day outside,
you
shouldn't have any need for mechanical air conditioning, because the outside should be able to bring that air in and be comfortable.
Right.
And if it gets too hot, we should be able to close the windows, put the aircon on for a minimal amount of time, stop, open the windows and vent the building again. So
gotcha.
We're trying to use the outside air in, so use all the free air possible because it's free.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So as a business, obviously I understand the point around like Australian made, manufactured here, stimulating the economy, as should anyone think, depending on where they are. But have you also started thinking about, or have you guys already been working to export? Or are you only focused on the Australian market?
So we're heavily focused in the Australian market, but we do export now. So we've exported into Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu and Fiji, New Zealand. So all the Pacific type islands.
Yep.
We've got a good reach there, and we're getting some pretty strong connections there. Yep. So the work will continue there, and a lot of the work there is Australian funded as well. Australian government does a lot of military bases and hospitals and things like that. So something we're definitely looking at expanding on. And I guess further than that, like into the Asian market and things, that's a really tricky market. It's very, very price driven.
Right.
And there's a lot of product over there. So for us, I feel that's
there's definitely a challenge going into any new market. But I think your product is, or even the business itself is niche. So it's built on the idea of being niche. You're not trying to sell to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. You're focused on a specific product, a specific niche. Granted, the more you can sell, the better. But you're not trying to take over the 100% of the market. So even when you go to other markets, I would assume there will be certain pockets where you can, through, I guess, partnerships or business development, you can enter these markets. But there's a lot more. There's a lot of work over here before you start thinking about going outside, right?
Yeah, definitely. And just recently, after all this pandemic, the government's, I think, committed like $11 billion to, construction sector and infrastructure and things like that. So the Australian construction sector will boom. and it will be big, and there'll be lots of work for everyone. And I just really, as I said before, I really hope that we start looking at Australian manufacturers and keep those billions of dollars they're spending, keep it here and recirculate it so that the economy can keep growing.
Yep. Awesome. What, I guess, I know we covered a few of these, but were there any major entrepreneurship challenges / lessons that you and your brother kind of went through or came across over the last 11 years that, because a lot of the people that tune in, I guess a big portion would be entrepreneurs or people looking to start a business. So I guess they might be looking into, okay, well, Leigh has established his business and grew over the last 10, 11 years. If there's something that I think would be a general lesson from an entrepreneurship standpoint that you can share, that comes to mind.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few, sure. But I think one is shit gets hard. And that's the truth.
I like how you say it.
If you're going to start a business and you think you're just going to put an ad up and sell millions of dollars worth of stuff, if you can, please let me know. Reach out and let me know how you did it. But shit gets hard. You have to stick in there. My dad's got a saying called stickability. You need stickability. But you need belief. You can't just push shit uphill. You need to believe in your product. You need to believe in yourself. It might sound cliche, but you really do. You need to have that determination, that drive. And if someone says no, there's always another way. I can tell you. I've been told no
so many times.
God knows how many times. But there's always another way. There's three sides to every coin. There's the front, back, and the side. So don't forget about the side or the edge.
Yeah. So when someone tells you no, I guess for me, no means one of two things. One is the product genuinely needs improvements and doesn't live up to the standard, or the standard at least. Or it was just a wrong no. It was not they should have said yes, but something else was in the way. Maybe someone else got in before me, or God knows, maybe they didn't even like me as a person. I don't know. Like, it's either something wrong with the product or something else, right?
And it could be that we just didn't educate the market right on what we offer as well. So sometimes the messaging needs to be looked at. Like maybe they've missed the point that we do have all these amazing performance numbers, but we didn't relay that correctly. So, that's something you need to, I think criticism's great. People that say, get all scared and worried about it. No, accept it, because it's a lesson for you and a chance for you to grow and make it better.
Were you always, as a younger version of yourself, were you always had that attitude towards no and rejection? Like when someone says no, you don't take it for an answer, and then you go back and you look at, okay, what can I do to get a yes? Was that always a mindset you had as a kid or someone like younger than who you are today?
Yeah, my mum will attest to this. She's always said it's always been Leigh's way or no way. I'm her A to Z child. It's like if he wants it,
he'll get it.
He'll get it. He'll do something. So even from early days, I used to play like representative soccer. I remember one year in my 14s, I didn't make the team, so I went to another division out in like Western Sydney and played out there in representative soccer because I still wanted to play representative soccer. So it's always been a.
What did you get labelled as stubborn?
Yeah, stubborn.
Yeah. I got labelled as stubborn, so I feel like it's the mindset you have when you're young, especially. You can get labelled as stubborn, but you really aren't. You're just persistent. Stubborn is just a negative connotation when someone doesn't know you enough. My dad used to think I was stubborn, and then until I got older, a few years ago, he goes, "I realized that you were not stubborn. I realized that you were just passionate and persistent about what you want to achieve with your life." And I think that is an absolutely important trait as an entrepreneur.
That's a great trait.
Yeah.
It's probably a must-have, to be honest.
A must-have, absolutely. Like imagine you're an entrepreneur and you get told no a few times and then you go back and you're like, oh, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
It's game over.
Yeah, that's right. You're not an entrepreneur anymore.
Yeah. So, okay. Great. So dealing with no and going back to the drawing board and looking at how you can make it work. And like you said, that could be educating your customer or the market. Anything else that comes to mind around things that you've learned from an entrepreneurship standpoint?
I think probably one of the biggest things is like knowing what you do, like knowing your product or knowing whatever it is you do, but knowing where it fits. Like if you really can define that the market or the place that product needs to be positioned, everything gets a lot easier. Like my journey with the residential and the fabricators and architects, and then finding government and finding that my product is really purposely fit in education. That's where my product is best suited. Yep. And you hone all your attention in on that. So at the start, like all of us, we shotgun approach everything. We try everything, put our hands in 50 pies. Yep. Once you can get your hands out of those pies and just, have one and really pinpoint focus it, I think that's where the growth and the real, flourishing of the business comes.
And you know why I think this is super interesting? Because a lot of people assume that you have to find the niche on day one. And most of the time you don't. You start somewhere, you pick up a point in the entire map and you say, okay, I'll start here. This is the market that I'm in. This is the product. Okay, cool. And then as you keep going, you get the no's, the yeses, the no's. And then eventually you find that specific niche that really fits. And, if you talk to a marketer, and I'm a marketer, they'll say market research, understand your buyer personas, understand who your target market is, target audiences, and all that stuff, which is absolutely important. But when you talk about entrepreneurship and starting out, sometimes you can't afford to have to invest in proper market research, and sometimes depending on the industry, the data may not be accessible. So a lot of times it just comes with like getting on the road and actually finding out through trials and tribulations and like real life experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And you don't know what you don't know. You have to talk, you have to ask, you have to be out there and take the feedback.
Yeah.
It's just part of it.
Yeah. So where are you guys in the next 10 years or 5 years?
So our 5-year plan is pretty exciting. Actually, we've got a massive push with this sustainable Green Star approach. We've got a few things I can't really mention yet, but
sure,
some pretty exciting stuff coming up. We've got 2 new products we're releasing into the market, hopefully later this year.
Yep.
Which will take more of the commercial space for us.
Yep.
And just continue to grow really in the markets that we know our product fits.
Awesome. But the whole idea of or mission of being focused on being energy efficient, that's something that will continue to be your focus, and like you'll add more into that space.
Correct. Yeah, we want to make sure that the Australian construction industry has better built buildings.
Right.
We want to have longevity in buildings. I want my kids to go to schools which have cleaner air, natural ventilation, natural lighting. So the whole, again, circular economy. But we're very passionate about the Australian manufacturing.
Yeah.
And building buildings better.
We should talk to ScoMo next.
We should
have Scott Morrison on the podcast.
Let's bring him in.
Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of go over or discuss or share that we perhaps didn't touch on?
I think we've touched on a lot. I think just the advice out there to anyone coming up is just give it a go. Believe in yourself. Keep pushing. And don't take no as a no. That's all I can say. If you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing, do it. Do it.
And I guess if I can add to that, is there's something powerful about time. So whatever you're going to provide or whatever product, or you as an entrepreneur, or you as someone who's starting out, you look at where you are now, and then a year from now, you're twice better. But another year, you're 4 times better. So like, they call it the exponential curve. Like, it's almost like you're in a plane. Not that I've seen one for a very long time. But you're in a plane and you're on the runway. And the first thing that the plane does is after like the engine, everything goes on and they're ready, it keeps running on the ground for a period of time, like a couple of minutes, and it has to accelerate, but then eventually it just takes off. And when you're in the plane, you don't exactly know when you're going to take off. You know you're going to take off. You have that belief, you have that confidence that you're going to take off. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on the plane. But you never know when exactly you're going to take off. And so that is something I always like to draw like an analogy of. Like as an entrepreneur, you have to keep accelerating until you're able to take off, but you never know exactly.
I love when. That.
Yeah.
That's spot on.
Yeah.
It rings very true to my journey as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that I was just sharing that because for anyone listening or watching, I've only started the business, my agency, about 3-4 years. So my entrepreneurship journey is definitely not as long as yours. And, you've kindly shared a lot of your insights in this podcast. But from my experience and also from the experience of a lot of people that I spoke to and have seen, that's sort of like how I like to think of it.
I think you're spot on.
Awesome, man. It was... Leigh, it was a pleasure to talk to you, man, and all the best. And I look forward to seeing you guys making bigger dents in the Australian manufacturing sector and hopefully export all around the world.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.
Awesome, man. Cheers.